Listener discretion is advised. This podcast may include profanity and discussion of sensitive topics. Any opinions expressed are those of the speaker and do not reflect the opinions of any other person or entity. Welcome to episode number 7 of the Real Future podcast. My name is John Nyboer. I'm a Los Angeles-based photographer of street dance culture, and I started this podcast to share the personal stories and perspectives behind the world's largest arts movement. My guest today is Shantel Ureña. Shantel is one of the first dancers I ever photographed, and she's experienced incredible growth during her 10 years in LA. As a dance artist, she's choreographed her own stage pieces, created films, taught classes, and competed in the battle scene, all while expanding the range and foundation of her expressive movement. We talked about her upbringing in Tampa. Yes, she's yet another Florida dancer who brought her dopeness to the left coast. About her growing career, and about building a more inclusive scene for younger generations. At the end, she made it inclusive for older generations as well by teaching me how to dance merengue. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I think you will too. So let's get into the real future with Shantel Ureña.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure why I picked that particular photo, but Shantel Ureña, welcome to the Real Future. Thank you very much for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
It's going to be nice to get some of your story. As I've told almost everybody, it's kind of funny. So far, people that have been on this, I have some kind of relationship with, right? But in a lot of cases, we're always in places that are loud. So I've spent all this time in the same places as you, but haven't necessarily talked. You and I have talked a little. You and Nyboer are both in here for a photo shoot.
Yes.
So we got to talk about stuff. But this is going to be cool. The flowers, everybody gets flowers because I am a flower shop, and so I support my neighbors, and it adds a little flair to the situation.
Yeah.
I walked in today. I was like, "What flowers am I going to get for Shantel?" And I grabbed the yellow daisies because I seem to remember you doing a really short film a while back where you were in a field with wildflowers.
Yes.
What was that?
Okay, so Daisy is actually the name of my late great-grandmother.
Are you serious?
Yes, so this is actually really special because it was named after her. So daisies are always special to my family because of that.
Was the film called Daisy?
No, I don't think it was called Daisy, but my character was Daisy.
Was it like Mariposa or?
Oh, you're talking about that photo shoot.
Was it I
that's
just
a
remember
whole
something-
different thing.
I remember something visual, but this is okay. That's awesome. I nailed it.
Yeah, you ate that. You ate that.
Well,
I love
it. So this is perfect. Where's your grandmother from?
So my family on that side is from the Dominican Republic, and then on my mom's side, they're from Venezuela.
Okay. And did they meet? Where did they meet? Your parents?
My parents met in Boston. So what a journey. They went from DR to Venezuela to New York, and then they met in New York. My grandparents met in New York, and then from there moved to Boston. From Boston moved to Miami. From Miami to Tampa, which is where I grew up.
You grew up in Tampa, so you were born in Tampa.
I was born in Boston.
You were born in Boston.
I was technically born in Salem, Massachusetts.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, but I was only there for a year, and then they raised me in Tampa.
Okay. My last guest in here was born in Boston as well. Well, Hans.
Hans? Oh, yeah.
Did you know? Yeah.
Everybody from, that's a joke that a lot of folks from Florida are not actually born in Florida.
Well, I understand. Being from here, I am familiar with that.
Yes.
The West Coast version of that.
Yes.
Right?
Transplants.
Do you identify with both Venezuelan and Dominican cultures?
Definitely. I think I lean into my Dominican side more, though, because growing up, my grandparents made it mandatory for us to attend different types of cultural events for Dominican culture. So any type of celebration, Hispanic Heritage Month, it was all really centered around knowing our history and, from the folk dance to what we ate, the music we listened to, like that was all very important to them. So growing up, that's part of what I had to do was like on the weekends I might not be available because I might have to go do something with my grandparents.
And at the time, did you chafe against that?
Oh yeah, I mean it's hilarious when I look back at some of the pictures. You know, at the time I was in like a jazz contemporary world
As a dancer?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I thought jazz and contemporary was everything. Like I thought ballet was everything. And so when I would go to these parties and I would see them like dancing salsa and merengue or doing Dominican folk dance, I'd be like very shy. Like, I didn't want to dance. But then whenever they would ask if I would do like a little performance, I would either do a solo or I would bring in one of my friends and we'd choreograph a jazz number and do a jazz number.
Are you like in the living room? You're like at a cultural center? Like what kind of environment
We're at a
is it?
cultural center.
Okay.
Yes. So it would literally be at some type of event. And we would be doing like a jazz number to whatever I thought was like Latin at the time. So
That's great.
it was a little off kilter. Shout out to Dominican Association for allowing me to express myself, even though I was not hitting it yet.
Right, but now this is one of those things like, you know, I had to take piano lessons and I kind of didn't like it, but now it's like, I'm glad, right? And this sounds like you appreciate this very much.
100%. I'm
Do
so
you
thankful.
travel back to the DR? Every
I
once in a while?
haven't. I've only been once. When I was in the second grade, we went for a week, and it changed my life. I was more aware of different ways of living going there, especially seeing a lot of kids my age and what they were doing. I was like, oh, why aren't they in school? It's like, oh, they got to make money. Oh, okay, that's different. But I have wanted to go back now that I'm an adult, you know, and experience the beach and just like the culture as an adult.
Do you know I went once?
Oh, where?
Super random. So this was New Year's Eve of the millennium. So New Year's Eve 2000.
Oh.
And some friends, I don't know how this came up, but decided to, like, let's rent a house. There's areas where like lots of people, like I'm sure a lot of expats have these rental homes, right? So we went and we did that. And that was fun. We did manage to get some culture though. Took a day and traveled to the cockfight on Sunday. Oh. I will never forget this. So we got there and we're like, okay, they were doing the weigh-in. Actually, they weigh them in.
Yep.
Have you seen this?
I haven't seen it, but I know what you're talking about.
And they don't do it. They don't do it to the death there generally. They wear the plastic talons. They don't use the metal ones. But it was unbelievable. We spent the whole day there, you know, from the weigh-in, and then the fight started, and it was in this kind of Thunderdome kind of thing. And you know, whoever was handling bets is a genius because it's all in person, and a huge roll of cash, right? And you're like, how do they even know what's going on?
They don't play about their money.
what was amazing was the band. So outside of the arena was like a bar, just like a dirt floor covered patio and a bar, and this band was just like, just like holy shit! If this, you know, it was like one of the best bands still that I've ever seen.
Wow,
right? Like this drummer was just bonkers because you know that drum, you know, is kind of the whole that carries everything.
They hold it on their lap.
So yeah, I would love to go back and see more of the actual country, but it did. At least I got to do that, and yeah, I mean, cockfighting. You know, it's not like something that I would really not into that sort of thing in general, but like, you know, when in Rome, right?
Yeah, super random.
And it was a good experience.
Yeah.
So when did you start? So sounds like you started dancing as a small person.
I did. Yes, I was always dancing. I was dancing in the living room.
Okay.
I was dancing everywhere.
Okay, so do you remember? Since you're so young, this might be challenging, but do you remember like the first time, your first dance experience that really resonated with you?
As a small child, or
no,
okay,
like the first as far as you can go back in your head, it's like, oh yeah, I remember this.
I actually do remember something, and I was pretty young. I have to have been under 5, but I do remember my grandparents had this spinny chair, and they had these Dominican flags around the house. So I just remember one day, it was like a Saturday, and they just let me pick any type of music and put it on. And so thinking about the music just echoing throughout the whole house, and they just let me do this. I picked Las Chicas del Can, and I had a favorite song. It was called Tapiao. So they would put it on repeat for me. So they would let me dance to this on repeat. I don't even know for how long, but imagine kid energy with no TV.
I can imagine this.
Okay, come on, 90s. So I was just with this flag, and I just remember I was dancing everywhere with the flag, and then I sat on the chair, and I would spit on the chair, and I would start talking, and then there was this mirror, and I remember looking at myself in the mirror, and I walked up to myself in the mirror, and I was like, yeah, we're dancing. we're dancing. And I knew nothing yet. I was just, And then I grabbed my flag. I was like, I got in a chair and I kept spinning. And what's crazy is, looking back, I remember this memory, but this past time I went back home and I was looking through photo albums, and there's a picture of me on that chair. And I'm like holding my legs and I'm like smiling like this.
Oh my God.
And I've never seen that photo before. And I said, wait, what? So super surreal moment to know that I probably was doing it a lot more than I even remember, and they captured it.
So then were you like, I want to take dance classes? Or were they like, she needs to take dance classes?
The second one.
The latter?
I was
Okay.
apparently just doing too much at home. They were like, we need to get this energy somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you went straight into, you went straight into jazz and contemporary because that's what was available?
Lyrical, yeah, at least around us. And then on occasion, I would take Dominican folk classes. And then at home, at parties, we would do like in the living room, they would teach me bachata, merengue. So I at least understood how to do it. Now, would I do it in public by myself? No, not yet. But I had that understanding at home.
And were you just going to studio, or did you end up going to like an arts high school where you...
I did go to an arts high school. Yeah.
What was that? Where was that?
Blake. Hey, shout out to Blake. Blake is a performing arts magnet high school. So what's dope about Blake is that
This was in Tampa.
Yeah.
Tampa, Florida.
Well, more downtown Tampa, but still Tampa.
But, yeah, we don't need to get that. Or
we might need to.
Maybe we do.
We might need
Give
to.
me the GPS coordinates.
Okay, come on. But what's dope about Blake is that they would have traditional students there and also the magnet program. But traditional students could be a part of the magnet program if they tried out for it or if they auditioned for it. So you would have just extremely talented kids at whatever their gift was. Like whether it was, I felt like I was at like the Hogwarts for arts. So it'd be dance. They had a jazz section. They had like classical string section, like orchestra.
Yeah.
They had choir. So you had people like acting, musical theater, and they were just really good at it. Production, like backstage, knowing how to work the theater. And we were all just so young, but everybody was just very talented at their specific
that's
art
awesome.
form. Yeah. So I went there for 2 years, and then went to just like a regular high school the other 2 years.
Okay. And how did you stay connected with... I mean, that must have been kind of a big change to go from, like, having that kind of arts training be part of your daily life to... Like, how did you keep it going?
So I was in a studio at the same time. So I was doing the magnet school in the day, and then after school I would go to a dance studio, and I was in a competitive dance studio, so we
Yes.
would compete.
You do a little traveling?
Yeah,
Get in the
we
van,
would.
the bus?
Yes, well, not far, but
Yeah.
just like to another city.
Right.
So we would usually compete against folks in Miami or like Sarasota or Daytona. So even though I didn't have that part, I still had it in my life.
And that's where you learned, I'm guessing, like, choreography skills, how to read that and learn that.
Yeah, specifically in those styles, because I would say that's different.
But then but there's something, I remember when I first started, learning more about dance, and I was, photographing Slim's classes, right? And the stuff the class would learn in an hour, I was always like, I know, it's a matter of speaking the language, right? But for someone who doesn't, it was always so impressive to me. Because be like, okay, next. I'm like, wait a minute.
Right.
What do you do? It would take me the whole time to learn the first eight beats, right?
It would be the same for me too. Hello.
What do you mean?
It was just challenging. Like his classes were pretty advanced.
Yeah, but you nailed it. And honestly,
Friend.
I was watching, right? By the end of the class, I know you have a different gauge, right? I know for you, like, oh, I missed this and this. But generally speaking, by the end of that class, almost everyone was nailing that stuff.
He's a good teacher.
You know?
I will say that. Slim Boogie is a good teacher. Some people are great choreographers. Some people are great teachers. Some people are great both. Some people are great dancers, but they don't know how to break it down necessarily.
Right.
And he can do that. And he can do that to someone who has no idea what's going on. So to me, those are the best educators.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you switch high schools, you're in competitive. At what point did you decide, well, did you come here right out of high school to LA?
Pretty much, not really. Fun fact. So I did get injured towards the end of my high school journey. Had dislocated my hip, and then
that's a good one.
Yep, very intense, especially for someone whose whole life was.
What were you doing?
It actually happened over time, so it wasn't something that.
Okay.
It was like not sudden. But basically, that kind of changed my trajectory because I couldn't do necessarily physically what I could do before.
Yeah.
And at the time, street dance was around me, being introduced by a group of friends. And, I needed something to express myself and almost to give me some type of inspiration to continue moving forward artistically. Because at the time, after high school, I started going to school to be a medical assistant. So I actually have my certification as an MA.
Oh, okay, so you are okay. I get it. So you're going to get that certification.
And so then I met this group of friends, also known as the Floridians, and they helped just introduce myself and a friend of mine into street dance.
You met we're talking the Floridians that I know as the Floridians.
Yes.
So Hans and Sam and
Breland, X. Yep.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So I owe a lot of that beginning to them and to Urellis as well, because they, we were meeting up at the dance studios in Tampa like late at night, just dancing for hours. And they really encouraged me to push past my own doubts and insecurities, and they just believed in my creativity.
How did you meet them actually?
So Urellis had met Breland. I think he was subbing or teaching at the studio that she was still dancing at, and then from there, there was this other studio called Vibe. Shout out to Vibe, and they were teaching there. I'm not really sure, but I got introduced to them through her.
Okay.
And
you were still rehabbing or what?
Yes. So that was another thing, was I was still healing from the injury, but because in street dance, you don't have to do all that if you don't want to.
But you had the smarts to not do it all, because it would be tempting to go out. Okay, so what style did you first start trying to perfect, if there was one, in the street dance vernacular?
The first that I was being introduced to was popping. And I really loved popping, but I always felt like I was forcing myself to, hit as hard as I could versus understanding the technique. I really feel that I started to actually understand that technique when I was learning from Slim, because he didn't center the class so much around, you have to match the shape or the aesthetic, but, just trust in what you already have and let's build from there.
Yeah, he would always talk about the hit being more of like a visual thing, right? Or more of
an accent.
Psychological thing. It doesn't, like you said, it doesn't have to be like you're dislocating your hip again with the hit. It just has to be. It has to communicate. It has to be understandable. That's what I was.
100%.
I remember him talking about that.
Yeah, and also I would say even Boogie Frantick, because he really helped me understand that I can use my imagination in different ways, because coming from a contemporary mindset, we are often told to pull from certain spaces in a certain way. And so he was somebody that introduced another way of thinking for me. And so it didn't have to be that I had to do the most extreme. Like, the whole point is longevity. And so if I'm thinking of longevity, what can I do right now? And that was always enough. And so I really appreciated that as well.
And what at what point did you decide I got to go to the left coast?
To the left coast?
Where
The west coast?
LOL.
Yeah. I never heard it called that.
Never heard of Left Coast?
No. Hey, but that's y'all. So basically within like 2 years after I graduated high school, I was pretty convinced I wanted to move to LA just because I wanted to pursue it professionally.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do commercial, but I just didn't understand in what aspect yet. So that's also part of why I chose LA over New York. Yeah.
And did you enter, like, at the whole time, were you thinking I'm going to come to LA and try to get commercial work as a street dancer or more contemporary? Like, was there
There was honestly no
focus?
Clarity there. I honestly was just like, I'm going to go out and dance.
Nice.
Which
Did
is
your parents think you were nuts?
100%.
But were they
Hello.
were they okay with it, or were they like, we're not talking to you?
No, they were not okay with it. Honestly, it's been a journey, but now they understand.
Now they're bragging on you all the time, I bet.
Yes.
Nice.
Especially because of all the recent things that have happened for me, you know, they just want the best for you. And I understand, especially now, I completely understand where they were coming from. They just wanted stability.
Yeah.
And, they immigrated over here. So for them, the American dream was for us to be stable and well
Yeah.
off.
It's like, it's right there, and you're just, like, ignoring it. Right?
Exactly. And I completely understood that. But part of, I think, the artist's path is trusting in a lot of those things that you're raised with. So, you taught me how to do this, this, and this, and this. You have to trust that I have those skills now and I can apply them in the real world.
I was going to ask you, what gave you the confidence? Because, as I think living here in Los Angeles, we both meet, so many people who do this, right? And it's easy to forget that it's really not that common, right? Like, I mean, I know lots of people do it, meaning leave wherever they're from to go to LA or New York or the big city, like wherever you are. But it's a big move. I mean,
It is.
I never did it, right? And what do you think gave you the confidence / courage to just do it?
I'm remembering the exact moment I had hit up my friend and I was like, I'm doing it. It really felt like I had nothing to lose.
Okay. And you didn't, but again, you somehow got that idea.
I just had it in my head that I had nothing to lose. Like, what's the worst that could happen is that I come back home.
Right.
And then I just build my life back home. But if I build my life back home, I could kind of imagine what I was going to do. I could kind of imagine where I would work, for how long. I can imagine the whole layout. But for some reason, I think I would have always been stuck with the what if.
Yeah,
what if I had done it? What
have.
if? And I would have
You
missed
would
out
have.
on so much, There's been a lot of this since moving out here, but I would not take any of that back because, it's landed me into some really beautiful moments that I couldn't recreate if I had stayed back home, or meeting certain people and just witnessing different types of art. And I just feel like I've been able to see such beautiful things that I feel like most people wait to watch a movie to be able to see those things. And I've gotten to see that right in front of my face.
Yeah.
The magic of just normal life with artists. And also, I met Jabari out here. Ow. So, I mean, I wouldn't have met him if I stayed back home,
That is true.
There's
That
a
is
lot to, I think, just trusting your path. And I just could not imagine of just staying there.
I do want to get into what you're doing right now, but I want to stick for a minute, if you don't mind, on this kind of thread. Do you see, like, when you came out to LA and you entered the street dance scene as a woman, did you feel like you were welcome and you were bringing something extra into it, or did you feel like you kind of had to, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Do you have anything to say about being a woman in the street dance scene, and if that...
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a great question.
It's really open-ended. I can keep narrowing it down if you want.
Yeah, no, that's good. I definitely want to shout out somebody who I think helped with that. Her name's She Street. And Toogie Barcelo. Hey, Toogie. when I first moved out here, one of my former teachers had introduced us via social media to me to Toogie. And from Toogie, from Urellis, I met Sheestri, but then Toogie already knew Sheestri, so it was kind of perfect. So I think when I first came out here, they were right in my face. When I tell you, the second day I was in LA, I shot a concept video with Sheestri because that's just what she was already doing.
Is Sheestri
popper?
Part of the council?
Yes, she's the creator of it, the founder.
Okay, yes,
Yes, so
she's the best. I'm gonna try to get her in here. Actually,
you should.
She's
100%.
really awesome.
And she was the first person that I met in my entire life that was talking about using art as a political reflection of the times. So when I would hang out with her, we'd watch things like Nina Simone documentaries and just understanding like the different plights of how to use your artistry versus it just being commercial.
Yeah. Just a side note, did you see the most recent Nina Simone? I think it's called What's Wrong, Mrs. Simone or something?
No. What's it on?
Oh, my God. We'll look that up and I'll link to it. It's extraordinary. I think it's the best one. I don't know. I don't remember who made it, but I think it's the best one that's been made. And it's just, it covers all of it. It covers the beauty and the tragedy and like footage that's just.
I'm down.
Of her taking
an
audience
documentary
by the throat, and just
wow.
Really extraordinary. And all the while, she's got that immaculate classical technique, right?
Yes.
Whenever she plays. Anyway, continue, please.
So I would say she, and then Toogie. Toogie was another person that was just always in front of me, and she was talking about things like, did you take a deep breath today? Do you know what meditation is? I had no idea what meditation was. So I started meditating because she introduced that to me, and that opened me up to just being able to understand my own emotions better. And so between the two of them, I didn't feel like there was like a lack of maybe like a model or like an understanding of how to navigate the street dance scene as a woman. I felt like I was surrounded by inspiration and an understanding of how to move. But I think as I started to go down my own journey, I didn't really think about it too much as like, I'm a female in the street dance scene. I gotta do this until I started battling more. I would say, I would do pretty good in battles. And then as I got better at my specific style, I got better in battling, I started to notice, there's usually not many females that make it to the end. And that is what started, even for myself, I got to push harder because I have to go further. And I have to be around people who want to do it, and I have to root for them too. And, constantly tell them like, you can do it, like whatever it is.
Okay. So there is some, because I noticed this when I started going to battles where not only did many women not make it to the end, but a lot of battles, depending who's throwing them, are really male dominated in the entries.
Yeah.
And it surprised me a little bit just because dance, again, going back to what I said earlier, so many little girls come up with dance, and certainly street dance as a cultural thing there's plenty of female participants, but I was a little bit surprised, like, wow, these battles are still really male dominated. And then a lot of times, early on I wasn't so sure because I didn't know much about what I was seeing, but as I've learned more about this culture, I feel pretty confident now. A lot of times I saw it at Flavor of the Year. I remember Unji was battling, and there was a round, I don't know who was against, but I was like, oh yeah, she took that. And it was like, no, for real? I see this a lot. And I don't pretend to know exactly what it's about, but I'm glad you mentioned that, because what do you think is up with that?
If I'm being fully transparent,
that's what we
honest,
want here. That's what we want here in the real future.
I think there is still a lot of conversations that need to be had within the street dance scene, and there is misogynistic ways of thinking still actively at play That is one thing for sure. However, I think it's also about, we have to address other things too, like homophobia and just like racial dynamics that are also at play, that I don't think we are even having those kinds of conversations on like the biggest level that we probably should be. And I think all of that connects, you know. We could ask questions like, why aren't there more vulgars and whackers in all styles battles? Not just why aren't women getting to the end? And it is probably connected to the same reason. You know, people have to feel safe in the space. And I often see like a lot of women, when it comes to hip hop specifically, feeling like they have to almost present themselves more masculine to be taken seriously.
Sure.
Versus if you did a whole round and you were super feminine and you made it all the way to the end of the battle, it's very rare to see that happen. I think someone who's doing a really good job of that right now is Toyin, because she has, you know, Toyin is Toyin. Like, in my eyes, she's a legend, a pioneer in different ways. But she has earned those accolades and that respect from, I would say, most of the men in, like, different communities, where now she's going down a different route and she's doing a whole new style of dance. She's in vogue now. And she's infiltrating that into what she already does. And it's gaining that same type of respect as if she did a beat kill off with just her footwork. So I think it all comes down to conversations. And, you know, this goes further back before I came to the scene.
Of course.
You know, this is all.
Of course. So, like, what would be a good platform? Where do you have these conversations? Because everybody gets in the room and they dance.
Yeah.
Which is
the
great.
conversations are happening. They're just
happening.
not happening on a public, large platform.
Mm-hmm.
So I think more people could be having those conversations with their own inner circles first. I think that it all starts with, one, yourself, and then with who you connect with, and what are you guys talking about? And then when you talk about it here, that person is connected to that circle, and then they start talking about it with that circle, and then boom, 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 boom. And eventually, since we're all talking like this, a shift happens. And if that shift doesn't happen, it's because the conversations are not happening. They're not spreading because they're probably not happening.
Interesting. I like that. So your thing's like an organic thing. We got to continue to have these conversations, because it's just like, I really feel like, what are you so scared of? You know? And it's like...
Yeah. Part of it is knowing our history and, you know, taking accountability of our role in this history.
Which again, there's been a pushback against, even, you know, the book banning. Like, don't even talk about it.
Right.
How dare you talk about racism and the slave trade? Don't talk. Come on.
And
really?
Those things show up in the street dance scene too. You know, the things we don't talk about in the real world are the things that we don't talk about in the real street dance world. It's not an imaginary world that's, you know, doesn't have to deal with those things. Oppression still exists even in street dance culture. But to be quite honest, I've been in LA now for 10 years. Mm-hmm. We are much further than where we were at when I first came out here. When I first came out here, I was hearing a lot of, you know, if you do the industry and you do if you do battling, you selling out. If you are doing this, you're doing that, you're not dancing. If you're doing this, there was a lot of like, no. Mm-hmm. But now there's this opening of, you know, you can do everything and and it's beautiful, because this generation that's coming into the scene right now, they're getting to be welcomed into the scene like this.
Nice.
Which is completely different. So there's already progress. And I think even with that generation that I would say is below my generation right now, you know, they're coming in it pretty boldly, and that's really nice. And they have us above them right now being like, yes, more. We're not gonna, and this is just from the conversations I've had with people like Freedom, or just witnessing people trying to open up space for other people, Gifted. You know, everybody's making an effort to open up space. And I think that was something that I did not see a lot of whenever I was coming up in terms of like big community spaces.
Nice. And okay, so how do you try to work this into your? How do you try to? We started because you were saying, I think she in particular was somebody who mentored you into introducing a political viewpoint into your work, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And I noticed I pulled this quote. I wrote it on my little whiteboard here.
Ah, yes.
Let me give this a shot.
Come on, let's go.
Esta riqueza baila en nuestras venas.
Come on.
Did I do
Good
it right?
job.
All right.
You ate that.
So, to me, I was just, I do a little homework for these, right? I don't want it to be like too prepared, but I do some homework for these conversations. And this I noticed on your Instagram page, and it jumped out to me. And I have seen your short films over time, right? When you put something out, I watch it, right?
Thank you.
And so I sense that this somehow is key to your work. So first of all, could you translate that into English?
Yes.
And then talk about what that means to you and how it works in something like your most recent short film.
Yeah, esta riqueza baila en nuestras venas. So this wealth, this richness, dances in our blood. So I dropped a short film last year, 2 years ago, called Generational Wealth.
I think it was, because we're at the start of the year. I think it was last year. The one with Boogie Frantick, right?
Yes.
And yes.
Yes, so it's about 15 minutes. Check it out. It's on YouTube. And
yeah, I'll link out to that too.
Yeah, so I was just thinking a lot about how there was a lot of conversation around generational curses, and I was trying to think, why do we always just talk about what we're trying to break?
Too, right?
Yeah, we always talk about the trauma, but what is something that we carry that is, equivalent to gold? And I started thinking about things like, a hand-me-down blanket, or, the way that you can recognize your mom's home by the jingle of her keys, and how those little things are actually the wealth that we carry, and we pass that.
Well, maybe it depends unless you're in trouble and you hear those keys.
And that's the trauma, right? Yeah. So knowing what you consider the wealth in your lineage and passing that down too, and I feel like we, as a culture, in terms of like Dominican American and maybe first gen, to be even more specific, we talked a lot about healing that inner child, and so. Generational wealth is talking about healing, but it's also talking about what my idea of the future could look like, because it does play with time travel and magical realism.
You mean the film? Mm-hmm. Yes.
So it plays with magical realism and different timelines. And
yeah, because you go from like the downtown, not far from here, scenes, you drop something in the trash, if I remember right, and then at some point you're in a studio, everybody's backlit and it's all silhouettes.
Yes.
Right? So,
yes. That's what I envisioned for the future, where each artist is technically their own, kind of what I was saying earlier, like they have their own message. So you have like the innovator, the disruptor, the creative, the healer, and each one of them plays a role in what I would imagine the future would look like, which is, the healer makes this kind of art and offers this type of message for people. And then the disruptor is the person who isn't okay with status quo, and they're constantly asking questions and, like messing things up a little bit,
right.
Shaking it up, and each person has a different role. And so it goes down a different journey. And also that was a film that was dedicated to my late uncle who had passed away during the pandemic, and wanting to honor him because he was the Dominican folk traditional dance teacher in Tampa, and so I wanted to bring some of that element back into the film as well, which is, to be quite honest, that was what inspired the whole film, was his passing. And I was listening to just music that he would teach to, and one song came up and my eyes were closed, and I just saw this whole thing of like people dancing to it, and I was like, I think I need to make something to honor him. It's too often people in our lives that are not celebrities. They pass away, and we don't have ways of, almost cementing them in this time. And so I wanted to do something for him, especially with this new digital era, because he was older. Just finding a way to keep his legacy alive.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, so that is generational wealth, but that line specifically is talking about, the wealth that we carry in our culture and how we pass that down, and not just talking about the trauma.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to talk about the trauma to be able to get to the wealth.
Got it.
Yeah.
What is the folkloric style? Is there one? Like what does the folkloric style that your grandfather passed on to you? Dominican Republic has a complicated history. So what part of that history does it come out of? Do you have a sense of this? And what is the music that accompanies it?
Yeah, so specifically what I focused on in the film was merengue. And I used merengue because I don't do palo. Palo is a traditional Dominican folk dance, but I'm not mastered in that, but I do merengue. So I use merengue also because in terms of the history of the music of merengue, so when merengue first came out in DR, they were under a regime, the Trujillo regime, which technically was dictatorship. And, at the time, whenever they would hear...
This was in the 20s?
I believe so. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But whenever they would blast merengue on like a radio, they knew that, they were about to receive a message from their president, because that was what they considered upper class music was merengue. The lower class music was bachata. And, it was almost frowned upon. It was like a shame to listen to bachata.
Right, and that older merengue is like danzón.
Yes, danzón.
It has that kind of ballroom. It's not so much like the hard-hitting stuff you hear today, right?
Yep. So I wanted to do a play on that because, yes, merengue was that in the past, but now it's just been, codified to something else where it's just more, anybody does it now. And almost that history, if you don't look it up, you would really not even know that about merengue or bachata, because bachata is so popular now. Now there's different styles of bachata.
Right.
And, the traditional style of bachata does come from the Dominican Republic. A lot of people don't even know that. So they think it started on the West Coast, or they started it in Europe, but that's not true. And a lot of the times those histories are often erased because they're created by Afro-Latinos or people of darker complexions. And so those histories get erased. But I used merengue specifically because I wanted to show that, it has shifted and we do use it in this different way. And also it was the style that I was versed in, because I'm not about to be doing something I don't do.
Is it strictly a dance, or is there like a percussive element?
Yeah,
to
we're gonna do it.
Yeah,
we're gonna do it. Yeah,
all right.
We're gonna do it right now.
Well, what time?
We'll do it at the end. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll do a little merengue together.
Okay, this is gonna be good.
Yes, it's super. It's a 2-step. You got this.
Okay, I can do it.
Yes.
What's like on your? Are you working on more films right now, or what's your? Oh, and by the way, congratulations on I think it was your first tour. You did the hip hop.
It was my second tour.
Second tour?
Yes.
And how was that experience?
It was amazing.
Yeah?
I had a great time.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good. That's
got
gotta
to
be
travel, eat new food, perform for
what new
different
food?
audiences. I tried oysters for the first time.
What do you think?
They're delicious.
Yeah, good ones.
Yeah.
You don't want the bad ones.
I've heard that, but thankfully they were not bad.
No.
I had to order more.
Nice. Where was this?
I actually don't even remember the restaurant name.
No. What state or city?
Oh, we were in Chicago.
Chicago.
Yeah. Chicago was beautiful. I would say my favorite.
I was just going to ask you.
My favorite 2 stops, Chicago and DC. I don't know what it was about DC. DC had my heart. I loved seeing the monuments. Like I went and I looked at everything. I saw Abraham Lincoln's big ass statue. I said, "What? This thing is huge." It's kind of scary, but
I know.
Yeah,
it is.
It was actually really beautiful though to see the different history of America specifically, because I've spent so much time in these past 10 years just trying to learn about my own culture and hip hop culture.
Yeah.
That I was like, yeah, when did World War I happen? Or what was that fight about? And what was the agreement? What's the reflection pond? Like, what is this? I want to know for myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so what are you working on a film now? Are you excited?
Right
Is there
now.
something you're working on that you're excited about right now?
Yes, myself. Right now, I'm just training in choreography. So during the pandemic, I made just a mental assessment of, why I originally moved to LA, which was I said I wanted to do things in the commercial world. I came out here and I was in a company and I was battling, and I was training in animation and waving and battling, and that's what I was doing. And then the pandemic hit, and then I was like, okay, now's the time. Now's the time to either go down that route, or it might be time to go somewhere else, because it was just rough. There was a couple of months where I was not understanding what was going to happen. My teaching load was super scarce. I was teaching online. It was a moment of, a reality check. And I started to switch the journey to go down, the commercial route. And I would say within the first year, I booked a music video, and I was like, oh, this is nice. This is nice. I booked it with Toogie, and it was, with an artist that I just never thought I would dance with this person. And I realized, I can do this. I am capable of doing this. And that was without training.
Who was the reason you're not saying?
Oh, yeah. Christina Aguilera and Ozuna.
Which video?
What is it called? I don't even remember right now.
We'll look that up.
Yeah. But yeah, so I was in that, and that just was exactly what I needed, because I had just switched that way. And I was also in the finishing stage of filming GW. So I was kind of in this place of like closing this part of my chapter of, I know who I am as an artist and where I want to go. And from here, I get to just play a little bit more. I don't have to make so many things just about talking about these things, but because I feel like I finally made, my identity piece, basically. But now I get to do a little bit more. So I was like, yeah, I can do this. I can do the music videos and the live stage, and I can tour. And I was healed up by that point. Like, my body was healed up. My injury was not a thing. And I said, let me just go for it. So I started taking classes online, because they had free classes online. And I was like, oh, I'm terrible.
What is the main challenge of choreography for you?
At first, I used to think it was retention, but I realized that it's not retention. It's more doubt. So a lot of it was me doubting my ability to do it. You almost start to psych yourself out before you're even in the game, because
and how does that
you're
play
worried.
On a technical level? Does that mean you forget steps, or that?
Yeah, so you might forget steps. And in the beginning, I would show that I forget steps. It'd be like, oh, obvious. Or I would just stand there for like 2 8 counts.
Wow.
And I grew up in the competition world, but that's different. We would learn a combo for months.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And then we'd go compete it. So it has time to get super perfect, and then we compete it.
How, for those who have no idea how this works, if you go to an audition, how long do you get to learn choreography, and how long is that choreography?
15 minutes.
And how long of a?
And probably the amount.
For for a minute?
4 8 counts, maybe
4 8 counts,
more.
15 minutes. And then it's like, okay, bam, who can cut it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then.
So try that at home, folks.
Yeah. Yes. Try that.
Well,
and you get better at it. That's the whole thing, is you get better at it each time.
This is the thing about arts. Like, it doesn't really matter so much. Like, I know you've worked with kids, right?
Oh, yeah, I work with kids a lot.
You still work with kids. And I think the real gift is that it tells you, even if you just study dance for like 3 years and you're not very good at it, but you have a good time and you maybe get on stage and do a performance that you're like, okay, I did this. it just teaches you that if you work at something, you will get better. It's good to hear that you have pushed yourself, because I know you can do it. Because like the reason I think I put this picture in the exhibit, other than it's just like the picture, is because you would always come in, and some people always are kind of similar, but you would like sometimes really bouncy and fun, and sometimes like, oh, she had a bad week. But
that was big facts.
But
shout out to Creatington and Slim Boogie's classes.
The dance was always
Safe
there,
space.
right? Like whatever you did, it was always something that I was like, oh yeah, she can really dance, and I always thought it was really courageous that you would just put on whatever you were feeling and just put it out there and communicate it, and kind of didn't give a fuck, right?
Yeah, and that helped.
And like someone like me who
a lot.
And just to let you know, right? Because like, I knew nothing about this, right? And I could receive this message, right? So that should let you know that you're communicating.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I'll say also, before the pandemic, like let's say like 2 years before I had started my house journey specifically.
You mean house music?
Yeah, like house
Dancing.
dance.
Yes.
Because I had been already going to open house since I had first moved out here. Like probably within the first month I was living out here, I started going to the sessions. But 2 years before the pandemic, I started training in it, and I was terrible. I was so bad. And then I started my hip hop training in 2022. So I didn't have hip hop foundation yet. I didn't have house foundation yet. And I was terrible. Not at hip hop. I was actually pretty good at hip hop in the beginning. I had stuff to work on for sure. But house, I was atrocious.
Who are you studying with?
So I would say when I first started house specifically, I was training with Andrea. And then within like 2 years, I have been training just with Jabari. So,
shout out Andrea Lomelin.
Yes, and Jabari Gilliam, get into his class, don't play. Yes.
Jabari can do anything.
He can do everything, and he was so patient with me.
I'm inviting you, Jabari, so be prepared.
Hey, Jabari, hey, go on, let's go. Hey. Yeah, so he was so patient with me, and, he kept just, reaffirming, like, you can do it. It's just a lot of that transition from, weight shift.
Yeah.
Going from a contemporary base to moving into a house or a hip hop base.
You gotta retrain your instincts, right?
100%. And your feet. Because you have to go from, instead of going from toe ball heel, you go from your heel. And that is such a big shift that I don't think a lot of people talk about as teachers, that how to be in your feet specifically and know how to switch from that street and club style to that classical style. It has been such a journey. But I would say it's been a very fruitful journey, because I don't know how many hours I've put into house, but it's really giving back to me. And I've been able to teach a couple of classes in house, and that has been so fulfilling. So it's been now 7 years with house and 5 years with hip hop, and I'm still working on my hip hop. And I want to battle with it more as like the years come up, but I want to like really find my own voice within hip hop versus like, I cannot believe I got as far as I got in these battles just doing little animation and waves with my contemporary bass. But I want to genuinely say thank you to everybody who let me go past, because they allowed me to just really exercise my voice.
But you picked up an attitude, because the first battle that I saw, you really was like, she's going to win this thing. And I think maybe you did, but it was at that.
Rated F.
Rated
Everybody
F.
brings that up. You know who I battled too, right?
Solon.
Yes.
Yes, of course. And both
He
actually
did
the thing was both of you. Like, I had never seen either of you bring that kind of like, I'm gonna win this motherfucker energy. And you both had it. Was so dope. And I remember like we were all giving you water and everything.
I know.
It was like,
so
oh my,
cute.
she's gonna die. Because Solon had been training like a maniac, and he was like in insane shape. And you were in shape, but I think even you got pushed to this limit that was just like, I'm going to pass out here. But that
I was
really,
not going to pass out. I was just going to say that.
what
it was,
no.
I think my adrenaline was pushing me. And then when it got to the final 3 rounds, or it was 2, 3, I don't remember. But I just remember it was the first time I kind of got shook a little bit, because up until that point I was like, yeah, I'm going. But then we got there, because they had a rule, and This is for all my folks who are starting out battling too, battle tactics. I don't even know if he did this on purpose, but all night I had not chosen this, but I had been battling, I think, on the same side of the room the whole night.
Oh.
And when they were like, all right, y'all, we're going to start the finals, I came out and he was on the side that I had been on the whole time. And I do not know why. That messed with my mind so much. And, I was talking to Frantick.
Well, that room had a lot of mirrors in it.
Oh.
So it was probably very distinct. That snow globe perspective room, there's a lot of mirrors on 3 of the walls. So that's probably why it registered so hard, is because it wasn't like a lot of rooms where, it's kind of like this over here. It's kind of like, that was probably something to do with it.
A shift.
Yeah.
Yep. And then I remember talking to Frantick afterwards. He was like, yeah. He was like telling me that he was like, I wanted you to just look at me so you could see that. He was trying to tell me to take a deep breath. I was like, what's going on? I literally was standing there, and if you look at the footage, you can see my mind is like, what's going on? Like something felt wrong. But he ate. It was a good battle.
It was. Have you matched up with Solam since then?
Yeah, we co-taught.
No. I mean, battled against him.
Oh,
I
no, I haven't.
Okay.
But don't worry.
Yeah, I want to see that. I want to see that for
Yeah.
sure. Okay. So this is going to be hilarious. So normally what I've been doing is I've been, at some point I'll be like, hey, I got an electronic drum kit over here. However, you
Merengue.
decided I'm going to learn how to do a folkloric step.
Come on, merengue.
So, first of all, thank you so much for doing this once again. Really appreciate it. I've got to move a couple things, take like 5 minutes, and then you're going to show me what's up.
Let's get it.
All right.
Here
we go.
All right.
Nyboer learns to dance.
Okay, so merengue. You're just going to bend one leg. Let yourself sit into the hip. One leg straight, one leg bent. Switch. One leg really sit into it.
Okay.
Switch.
This is where stiff body comes in.
Switch.
So this has always been you're very
So don't move your body.
Right. My hips, I'm like that.
Yeah, just let it fall.
Like the archetypal white guy.
That's okay. I got you.
So let it fall.
Yeah, just sit. Switch.
But see, I'm still twisting.
Don't twist.
But I don't want to twist.
Switch. Good. We're here. Now we're going to actually move our feet.
Okay, but is this the basic idea?
Yeah. Just switch. It's nothing else. Now we're going to do the tempo. Yes. That one.
Okay.
Now you're just going to walk it.
Do you,
That's it.
on the beat?
Yeah. 1, 2, 3.
And there's no there's none of this?
That's awesome.
Okay.
1, 2, 3.
You can start with your left, like most.
Doesn't matter.
Alright, there we go. The hips thing is like.
Yeah.
Right, tonight.
Can you open? Oh. Yes. You spin. Yes. Come back to me. Right here. Boom. Good. Nice.
Are you putting your heels into it?
Yeah, just stepping.
Right, but you're kind of stepping flat.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh my god, this is hilarious.
Good. Now our arms.
Kind of opposite your feet. But don't turn. So that's the thing, when I tell them my hips want to turn.
Now do a little turn by yourself.
Yeah,